Here we are on the second term of Sword of Rome. Determined that the Greek player would be the first player this turn. Basically, I will generally pick to the left of whoever has the option to pick, and in this case the Etruscans had the option to pick. They want to go last, so they got to pick the Greeks. So what's happened? Well, the Greeks attempted an invasion of Kakouin, and they were defeated on the naval combat table. Basically, their chances of getting across is only a third without any kind of special cards or anything. But they wanted to take that risk because if they can get across, they more or less can knock Carthage out, and that would be huge for them. I'm not sure they can permanently knock them out because there's the Africa-Spain box. I think that stays in play. I think they get some continuous reinforcement, at least mercenaries there. But between being knocked out and the unrest table, or knocked off Africa and the unrest table, Carthage probably won't be able to do much in the game if that happens. And that would open up a couple cool victory point spaces over on Sardinia, which become available really for free. But that didn't work. And Carthage on its side spent, just to upgrade their city to a 3 loyalty. They really don't have good options at this point. They could march over into Spain and try to fix the unrest there. That's what they'd like to do. But what if the Greeks make it over? Next, the Romans. The Romans made an attempt to siege this, or sway this little village over. It didn't work either. And we'll keep going. Alright, and now we finished up that round. Interesting events. The Gauls didn't do much. They just moved down to where they could get into striking range of the Samnites, because all that Etruscan territory is neutral, which means they can't pillage it. On the other hand, the Etruscans looked for aid anywhere. They asked the Greeks, hey, you want to be my ally? Be my friend, man. You can go attack Carthage, I'll fight Rome, we'll be okay. And Greece said, nah, I don't think so. And they kind of turned to the Gauls, and the Gauls went, Rrr. They didn't want to talk to them anymore. So they went to the Romans and said, look, man, we're like, if you carve me up, that'll suck for me, but you're making some big, potential foes here. How about we make kind of a deal and, work for a long time together? And the Romans kind of said, nah, piss off. And then the Samnites said, well, I can make things hard on you. And the Romans didn't take that kindly either. So the Samnites played Vestal Impurity, which dropped 2 Roman support, which meant they lost their brand new city. It's now neutral. And slowly, there's definitely an issue there. End of the second round. And what have we seen? The Greeks made another attempt. They cut a deal with the Samnites and said, okay, I'll tell you what, we will. And once again, they were turned back with attrition. Their army's getting smaller. They have to pay 3-point cards each time they go across. So the Carthaginians said, hey, they're not going to be able to make it. And they went into Spain and managed to defeat the unrest there at a loss of 1 garrison. The Romans tried again and failed. The Gauls came down, pillaged a little bit. See, they got another counter. The Etruscans succeeded in taking Capua, and that's the round. A round again, and the Greeks tried yet again. Now, I noticed something I had forgotten. I had read this in the rules, I looked for it, it's hard to find things. The 5-player edition kind of tacked into the rules has caused problems. I wish they'd use some color segmentation to indicate these rather than the way they do it. Anyway, I knew this was a rule in my head, but I couldn't find it. Every time there's an intercept attempt, the Carthaginians have to play a card. So I kind of depleted their hand because they would have played to prevent it. Anyway, so there is a definite limit there. They only have one card left, and this is the 4th round. So if the Greeks have 2 more invasion shots, they can make it there. But the other thing is the Carthaginians can play them anywhere on the board. It doesn't matter. Okay. Rome. Rome finally succeeded, and that's now converted to one of their spaces. I'm not moving victory point markers because that's not going to work. They're going to move at the end of the turn. You count up what people have, what they don't. The Gauls came sweeping down, grabbed some more territory, and then the Samnites got a new leader, Ignatius. Gellius Ignatius. Anyway, he's a slightly better leader than they have on the board, so I figured they'd play him. It looks grim for this Samnites, but honestly, it doesn't look that much better for the Romans. I mean, the Samnite Etruscan players just hosed, but the Romans are kind of in a shaky position if anybody turns against them. Now, who can turn against them? Well, the Greeks, but they kind of had their hands full. And the Gauls, who are just racking up points right now, they scooped up another a set of points and grabbed one for the record. This is the only way they really give points, so that's what they got to do. And yet another round goes by. The Greeks gave up on their invasions. Well, they're out of cards that they can do it, and moved to take this victory point space. They want to try to improve their situation as much as possible. Carthaginians, actually they were out of cards. All they have left is their whatever they're called, desperate times, because of all the interceptions they had to make. The Romans went and defeated the army down at Capua and were successful enough that they captured Capua. The Gauls came sweeping down and pillaging more Samnite territories and into the Roman territories. The Romans tried to intercept because they're very worried about the Gauls being booting around down there and would like to kick them out. They're doing okay, and just more randomness at this point seems dangerous. Finally, the Etruscans, who really don't have much of an army left. They didn't have much of one anyway. And they're very angry with the Romans. So they played the Great Latin Revolt, which removed 3 Roman support. Those support were at the new tribe. The city that they built, that had swung back to Roman after the victory. Now it's neutral again. And then this one. What sucks about this is it takes a good card, number-wise, out of the deck. That's probably the biggest cost to this. But the Samnite Etruscan player feels like the Romans really need to suffer for what they've gained. I can understand that. I try to play these things as though, in much the same spirit that I'm used to playing a multiplayer with real people, and attitudes like that come through always. So I try to add them to my games. So in the last round, the Greeks took Panormus, and the Romans attacked the Gallic army down here that was sitting in Praeneste. They defeated it quite handily, actually. Big die rolls, basically, both sides, but they did 4 casualties as well, driving the Gauls back. Because they did 4 casualties, they got 2 switches, which allowed them to take back their 2 cities that were neutral. And to finish up the movement, the Gauls moved down and raided, whatever this is, Populonium. And the Samnites went in and laid siege to the city at Villaret. So after 2 turns and some of the cleanup around sieges and the like, what ended up happening? Let's see. Velatrae fell to the Samnites. Populonium is now Gallic, even though it's surrounded, because they've got an army there. That's okay. We see that the Etruscans are pretty much gone. Some debating and arguing went on after the victory points were calculated, and the Greeks are 1 point away from winning, the Gauls 2. And pretty much everybody else has decided, hey, it took some convincing with the Samnites to allow them to gain territories, but pretty much everyone agreed we got to do something, and they're going to band together. Otherwise, the Samnites were going to remain allied with the Greeks, and that pretty much screwed everything. It was like, well, obviously then they're going to attack the Romans, and so Rome worked on cutting some sort of deal there with, like, you know, this has gone far enough. You've got one of my cities. How much do you want? Okay, sure, I took the Etruscans out. Wah. Got the new Roman consuls, and with Camillus, they've got a pretty good leader again. They've also got Manlius, who is not so good, but isn't doing anything too important. And I guess we're ready to start turn 3.